What's up, YouTube? I know it's been a minute, but I just want to shout out to all the, I think I got like 30 subscribers. That's awesome. That always feels good. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for deeming my mouth and my words important enough to subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I hope you learned something from my talking. I'm back. I'm gonna have some more videos streaming out, so thanks for staying subscribed, and let's get into it. So as I teased, or if you're new here, why I think the Red Komodo is the quintessential first cinema camera. It's throwing bows at the fx6. It's throwing, it's throwing hammers at the C70. It's got no competition. It's cleaning the floor, and I'm telling you why. And it's gonna be a quick video because I don't wanna bore you because I'm sure you've watched more videos. If you're here thinking about, oh, should I buy the Komodo? This is the perfect video for you. If you're like, oh man, I already have the Komodo, but I wanna learn more about it, this is the perfect video for you. And if you're just a film person, I'm sure this is the perfect video for you too. So let's get into it. Starting out with, and I'm just gonna be referring to the only cameras that are kind of in its weight class, if you will, the C70 and the fx6. They're all around 6K. So when you're looking at your first cinema camera, those are kind of the cameras you're looking at. And I'm gonna tell you why this is the best. So starting off, industry standard, Red and Ari. Those are the industry standard cameras. Yes, you have the Sony Venices. Yes, you have a C500. Canon needs to make like a badass Sony Venice equivalent to really be in the conversation, but it's really Red, Ari, and the Venice. With that being said, the Komodo is being used on shoots. It was used on the Matrix movie. It was used on that new Michael Bay movie. I'm sure there's more movies it's been used on. It's being used currently. So what that means is if you live in the LA, Georgia, New York, Chicagoland area, you can rent these out to, maybe not those productions because they have the money, but any kind of production. People know, any indie that is making a film that maybe wants to rent, has some budget, they would most likely want to rent this camera because it is being used and people want to emulate the look and feel of what is being used in Hollywood. This camera is being used more than those other two that I spoke earlier. That plays into some of your brownie points. Your rentability is higher. I've already rented out this camera like 8 times in LA, and it's basically paid for itself. I don't know, more than 8, but it's paid for itself, is what I'm trying to say. And I can't tell you if it's the same for the C70 or the fx6, because when people want cinema, they want a camera that's built for cinema. The red look. When I'm shooting on this camera, I'm inspired, and that's important. You want to be inspired. You wanna have the camera and be like, oh, I'm a badass holding this camera. People know I look cool, the image looks cool, everything is cool. But no, for real, like, I'm just excited to shoot when I shoot on this camera. The look, it looks good. It's not a DSLR sensor put into a cinema body. It's a cinema camera that is affordable. That's what it is, it's built. Red doesn't make photo cameras. Red makes cinema cameras. And that means something. And to piggyback off that idea, when you're coming to a shoot, people are like, oh, no one asked, like when people say, name recognition, blah, 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 like, you're just never gonna lose you the job. And it probably won't, but what it will do is not hurt you. People know the Red name. When you say, oh yeah, I have a Sony FX6 or I have a Canon C70, they're gonna be like, oh, is that like a DSLR camera? Because they know Sony for photos and they know Canon for photos. When you think of Red, they're either gonna be like, I don't know what that is, or they're gonna Google it, see the most expensive cameras, the Monstros or the XL Raptor, and they'll be like, holy crap, this guy knows what he's doing. And that's only gonna help you. And that might only happen 2 out of 10 times, but the 2 out of 10 times that you will impress your client. And impressing your client and keeping them happy are important. It helps get rebuild to do more work, as well as getting them excited. If they're excited and you're excited, you can create just the best product ever. That's just, so that plays into it. As much as it doesn't, it's not necessary. If you have those other cameras, it's not necessary. And I agree with those people saying it, but it also doesn't hurt it. It only helps. It might not help all the time, but it will never hurt you. And if you're looking at this camera, it's rigged out. I got the breakout box with the, gen lock, the camera control, the time code, and the start and stop. I got the monitor, the SDI, PL mount. It's good. This is a cinema camera. 90 out of 100 shoots, this will be fine. Yes, it's a little tight, but it gets the job done. It's a cinema camera, right? And so, yeah, I might have had to buy the breakout box or get some cables and everything, but every camera you need to do that. I just think overall, it has the ability to be a huge cinema camera that you can use basically up to when you have the money to buy the XL Raptor or the new RE camera. It will get you there, and that's the whole point. This is your first cinema camera. It's not your last cinema camera, it's your first cinema camera, but this camera will get you till you have the money to buy an LF, to buy a Venice, to buy, I don't know, a Raptor, whatever you want. It will get you there. It will be that middle ground. This camera just is way wider gap than the C70 or the fx6, in my opinion. It will just get you to that point where you will have these $70,000 cameras. And because it's future-proofed, because it matches so well with any DSM C3 or 2 camera in the Red lineup, you can use this as a B camera when you get that Raptor, or you can use it how it's originally designed, as a crash cam. You can put it on a car mount and not worry as much because you already have the money now for the new camera. I can say the same for the C70 or the fx6. I just wouldn't know. And having that reliability is an important factor, for me at least. Yes, it is a big beast cinema camera, but it also, you can strip it down, put those BPs, put a photo lens on front, use the top monitor or screen on the top, and you can get away with it. No one is gonna bat an eye. Now, you can probably do it with the other cameras too, but it's smaller than the fx6, and the C70 is just not as ergonomic. This is super ergonomic. You can easily balance it. I can use it on the RS too. It's not the best because it's like pushing the payload, but it works. And I can put it on a car mount. I can use it on smaller payloads, so it's cheaper equipment than having to worry about getting a Ronin. So having the size, being able to build it up is super beneficial. And again, the other cameras do it, I just think the Red does it better. And finally, and most importantly, it's a US company, and I can't stress how important this is. We've all been there when we had to wait on hold, or we had to wait for months to hear back from a company because you're on different time zones, or you have to ship something out and it takes forever. I can call up Red, obviously during business hours, and be like, hey, what's up? And they know me by name. I know them. I call them a bunch. Anytime I question, I was on a shoot, had an issue, called them up, they solved the issue on the shoot. That is so useful. That is a resource that I would just pay so much money for. So I will pay the extra $1,000 that people say that there's a Red tax to join the Red family, if you will. Because having that support is just, I just can't talk about how nice it is. I recently was on a shoot, an accident happened, my Canon lens broke. I've been waiting already for a month just to hear back from Canon. Canon is the worst with support. You have to talk to, you're better just going through a third-party person. I'm sure Sony's the same. Red is not. It's down in California. You need to ship something out. It won't take as long as those other companies, and you can talk to, it's like a small team of like 4 guys that are like doing Komodo support. It's just so refreshing. If you can and you have the money, I highly recommend investing in US companies like Wooden Camera, like Small HD, like Teradek, like Red. Because all of those companies, what do they have in common? They have a real person on the line that you can call that lives out in Austin or lives out in North Carolina or lives out in California. And that is so nice. In this small film community, having that is just, what that does is it outweighs the few negatives that this camera does, which I will go into. I will trade those negatives of having them in the camera for maybe, having built-in NDs just for that support. But since I touched on it, let's go into a few features, because I don't want this to be a feature thing. This is more about bigger picture of why I think you should invest in a Red. But I will talk about the positives and the negatives and my overall summary. So positives or things of note, right? Shoot 6K RAW, high, medium, low formats, super easy. On top of it, you can shoot ProRes, that's great. Different features, or different resolutions. You can shoot up to 120 frames. It is 100% usable. You will need to blast more light into it if you are doing it. And on top of it, it does crop in. I was shooting a commercial, we were in a small room, we needed to shoot slow motion. the shot just wasn't working. We had to modify it because we were too cropped in, and we were even using a 15mm lens, and it was just too cropped in. It was like forcing it into like a 35 or a 50mm. So it just wasn't working. Already on a Super 35 sensor, I might add. So that is a little issue. If I'm using any slow motion, I'm definitely gonna use my RFC. And that's also, you know, in cameras, every camera has pitfalls. Now, another issue, it doesn't have any NDs built in. Both the C70 and the fx6 have NDs. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's not the biggest issue. You know, you can get away with it by just getting a variable ND. You can get like the Polar Pro or there's brands that you can get. But down the line, I highly recommend, because I'm gonna be making a video about it later, why if you ever buy cinema glass, you should buy it in a PL form. I invested in a Kipper Tie Revolva RF to PL mount, which has built-in ND tray. So now I have clear 2112.6. I went backwards for you guys. We're behind the lens, excuse me. So it's a smaller glass, it's much cleaner. You don't have that color shifting as much when you have a big filter on the front. There's less artifacting with that, with the behind the filter lens. It also has a PL, so now I can use any PL lens. When you're renting it out, just a little note, if you are working in LA, Georgia, or New York, you already know that a PL lens, like every cinema lens is PL. Invest in a PL mount. You'll make your money back on that mount. You can rent that out for $100, you know, for the day, or $50 for the day if it's just a normal one, or $25, you know, depending on how cheap it is. It'll pay for itself over like 5 shoots. Just get a PL mount. Another kind of issue is I'm not exactly sure what the ports are on the fx6 and the C70, but if you want to get all the capabilities of cinema use, you need a breakout box. I don't recommend this if you aren't going to be running time code or not start and stop, and that would be like, you know, start and stop if you have a first AC pulling focus and they can start and stop the recording. If you're not gonna use that, and you're just Joe Schmo out in like Kentucky, just shooting the shots for like local stuff, I don't think you necessarily need to invest in that right away. But if you're ever gonna be renting out this camera and you're gonna have a crew, you need a breakout box. That is essential, at least. So that is something to think about. But again, you're gonna need a V-mount battery plate anyways. This only is like another $100 or $200 for all those features. Completely worth it if you're actually looking at the market. I have the tilted one. I'm super happy with it. I know some people had issues with like the battery sliding out. I don't have that issue. Must have been just like early cases of it. But that's basically it. So the slow motion and having it crop in, as well as, you know, you have to build it up a little bit if you want cinema, but that's with any camera. And again, the positives outweigh it. Yes, the noise, because when you're shooting raw and just overall, it is a little more noisy, but just invest, get $100, buy Neat Video, cleans up all your video super well. It looks good, it feels good, you're gonna feel good shooting. That is the video. That is why you should get the Red Komodo. I really don't understand why you don't. I can't hear, please, if you're watching this video and you're a Red hater or whatever, you have a genuine reason or complaint of mine of like what I've said. Any camera is good for what you're doing. And the only reason why I wouldn't buy this camera is if I was strictly doing documentary and I would want autofocus features, then the C70 or the fx6 would be the better bang for your buck. But if you're doing narrative, commercial, and music videos, I generally don't know why. And even if you do documentaries sometimes, like I shoot a lot of documentaries, I still use this, it's fine. You just have to get good at doing focus, which, you know, you should teach yourself to be a good autofocus or a puller of focus. I just don't see why this camera wouldn't be the camera to get. Yes, it has pitfalls, but all the cameras have pitfalls. And the look is just gonna beat it every time. The Red look is just going to beat what is produced out of those other cameras, in my opinion. Again, this is an opinion-based video, but it's the right opinion. No, I'm just joking. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I've been Evan Stellmach, cinematographer, director, based in the world. I'm based in the world, baby. I hope you enjoyed. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.